welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest has starred in some of the TV series and films that have become so iconic in horror throughout the last few decades. From turning Vampire Girl #1 into the character of Darla on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and getting resurrected for Angel, to playing the unknowing yet incredibly supportive girlfriend turned wife of a serial killer in Dexter, to being one of the only survivors of Jigsaw's sadistic games in Saw 5. Not to mention she played Marcy Fox, aka Foxy, in Jawbreaker, the 1999 dark comedy that has developed a cult following. And she's also starred in several more recent horror films like Circle, Havenhurst, and Nocturne. We are so excited to welcome to the podcast the incredible Julie Benz.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
How are you doing today, Julie?
I'm good.
We are
it's Sunday.
Just the weekend. So, we always like to take it back to the beginning. We have a ton of stuff we want to cover, but to kick things off, I've heard you mention that you were a competitive ice skater from ages like 3 to 16, but you suffered an injury that got you to, pursue a different type of performance, acting. Can you tell us about this? And just out of curiosity, if you hadn't had that injury, do you think you would have continued pursuing ice skating like in the Olympics or professionally?
So I was a competitive figure skater for 13 years. But at the age of 13, I had this pretty bad, I broke my, I had a really bad stress fracture in my tibia bone. And I was off the ice for about 6 months. And that's when I started acting. And then when I went back to skating, I felt like this other door had opened for me, that I discovered like there was life outside of skating. And so my heart wasn't as in it. And I made the decision at the ripe old age of 16 to retire from figure skating and pursue my love of performance through acting. And it felt like a better fit for me. Honestly, I came from a family of ice skaters. My brother and sister were junior national ice dance champions. Ice skating was like a family sport. So and I'm the youngest in the family. So I was the youngest starting as an ice skater. And I think when you have older siblings and they're doing something and then it's kind of put upon you that you're going to do the same thing. When I had that injury at 13, it really kind of opened my eyes up to, there's this whole other world. I can be something else. I don't have to be a figure skater. And I did love the performing aspect of ice skating. The jumping and all of that, my body just couldn't withstand the level of training that needed to go into going the long haul. I honestly had in my head that I was going to retire at 18 anyway, because I didn't want to I knew in my heart that I didn't want to spend my life in an ice rink. It just wasn't for me. Wasn't.
It's cold.
It's cold.
Cold. There's a certain smell that I still have like a sense memory of. But like I said, I was the youngest in the family, so it wasn't my choice. Like I wasn't a little 3-year-old going, "Oh, Mom, I want to go skating." It was like, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I'm thinking about like my dad is a lawyer. And when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm just going to be a lawyer. Like you see your parents or your family doing things. Of course, I did not become a lawyer, but like you see your family doing things and it's almost like you're groomed to do that,
Yes. Yeah. And at one point, because my father was a doctor and he comes from a long line of doctors. At one point, I thought I would be a doctor until he, as a punishment, he made me watch hemorrhoid surgery on video. And I was really grossed out by it. So I decided that he was a surgeon. So I was like, I'm not going to be a doctor. And I was like, maybe I'll play one on TV.
Wow. Hemorrhoids of all surgeries, that's the one.
That's your introduction.
Wow.
I know. Well, listen, it was either to be grounded for like 2 days and I think he was being funny in the punishment. And I don't think he thought I would actually take okay, I'll sit and watch hemorrhoid surgery. And I did. And then I was like, okay, I don't like what you do for a living.
And speaking of scary stuff, growing up, were horror fans on your radar? Did any make a big impact on you?
Like any horror movie specifically, yeah.
Well, yes, because I grew up in a suburb of Pittsburgh, and the Monroeville Mall was where I ice skated at, and that was where they filmed Night of the Living Dead. Or the original,
cool.
they're dying on the whatever the original the original of the Dead movies.
Yeah.
The one that took place in the mall.
Yeah.
The one that took place in the mall. That's where I spent my childhood. So I was very aware that I can't even remember the name.
I think it's is it
Dawn of the
Dawn
Dead.
of the
Yeah.
Dead?
Dawn of the Dead. Because then they did Night of the
Night of the Dawn of the Living Return
Dead.
of the Living Dead something. Deads. Yeah.
Yes. So I grew up in that mall basically.
Did you see it being made or anything? Or like were you there on filming day?
No, I remember hearing about it. I mean, I was a little kid when it was made. I will say this. I do not like zombies at all. Like The Walking Dead. I've tried. There was that Brad Pitt movie with zombies. I tried.
World War Z. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think it's because I was exposed to it as like such a little kid that like zombies for me, I don't know. I just can't.
I get it. I
can't get into it.
So what you're saying is you're counting down the days till 28 years later comes out this summer, right?
Right.
Just like, God, I can't wait for those zombie films.
If Brad Pitt can't get you in the theater, what can?
I know. And I tried. The zombie thing doesn't resonate with me.
Totally get it. We read that your very first film role just happened to be in the 1990 horror anthology, Two Evil Eyes, in the Dario Argento directed segment called The Black Cat. So what was that experience like? How was it working with Argento? He's like a horror legend.
I know. Well, I didn't know much about him. There was a boy in my high school that was more excited about it than I was. I mean, I was excited because it was my first movie role. It was my first time on a set. But he was excited because he's like, oh my God, you're going to meet Dario Argento. And I was like, oh, okay. But Dario was great. I mean, I originally went in just to be an extra on the movie, like a non-speaking extra role. And I was sitting in the hallway of the production office with a bunch of other young girls and their moms. And he walked past and he saw me and he's like, he doesn't speak much English. And he was like, and I'm going to do a terrible impression, but he was like, you come with me. And so my mom and I went with him and we were in a conference room and it was him and some other people. And he's like, okay, now walk across the floor. And so I walked across the room and he's like, now walk back. I walked back. And then he was like, do you want to be in my movie? And I was like, yes, I do. And he goes, no. Do you want to be in my movie? And I was like, yes, I want to be in your movie. And he was like, okay, you will play Betty. And so I just thought I was playing a non-speaking character named Betty. And so I went home, and by the time we got home, there was a message on the answering machine, because this was back before cell phones, message on the answering machine with the offer for me to play the role of Betty. And my mom negotiated the deal. Kudos to her. It wasn't very good, but it was the deal. And then we found out that I had to play the violin and I had lines. And ironically, my great-great-grandmother had been a violinist, and we had this extremely rare violin at home. And so when I showed up to like my first like rehearsal lesson on the violin, and I had played a little bit as a kid, I knew like 3 songs. They fell in love. They were like, you can't play this violin. It's like, this is like for an accomplished violinist. So they gave they let Madeline, I think her name was Madeline Potter, the female lead.
Oh, the Harvey Keitel's girlfriend?
Yeah.
I can't remember her name. Oh my God.
What I do remember in that movie was your like the guy that you hung out with, he was so cute.
He was cute. He was very cute. He was a bit of a player. I had a crush on him, but like nothing
I can
happened.
tell.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Nothing
Player
happened.
vibes. Player
But
vibes.
he was a total player. And I think he was 18 and I was 16.
He had that like suave, big aha hair.
I know. Whatever happened to him? What was his name?
We should
Must
do
have
some
joined a
research.
boy band, he's now part of the Backstreet Boys. No, yeah, exactly. Wait, you were saying, so the violin, the
So they ended up they gave that violin to Madeline to play, and then I had a little rental violin. I got the violin back after the movie was over. Don't worry.
Oh God, that's what I was going to say. I was, your poor grandmother.
Got an antique, yeah.
It's just as horror, nerds, we love it when someone's first film, last film, any film is horror. And looking through your resume, it was so cool that that's your first film, working in a horror anthology.
But I would say this too. Pittsburgh was that's where George Romero shot the majority of. That's where he was from. It's where he shot a lot of movies, and that was like what was there in the city of Pittsburgh at that time. I felt like, because I remember they shot Silence of the Lambs in Pittsburgh. There's something about the architecture of Pittsburgh that lends itself to these kind of scary movies.
Yeah, it is kind of like, I don't want to say creepy, but it has like this like
creepy architecture.
Yes, thank you.
It does. It has beautiful architecture, but it does lend itself to, I think, to being a great backdrop setting for horror films.
Yeah. So moving on to your stint on Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the late 90s. Now, you have the distinct honor of being the very first vampire shown in the pilot, which is awesome. And I've heard you mention that your character was supposed to die in that first episode. So what made Joss Whedon decide to keep bringing you back and eventually evolve the character into Darla?
I don't know. ADD? I don't know. I think that... So I think he really responded to what I was bringing to the character and how I was playing her. Because I went through all the I call it the test monkey for the vampire look. I had like 6 or 7 different makeup tests that they went through just to see how the sculpted piece would look, how it would look once it was all done, and during that process, I had never played up to that point in my career. I had mostly done sitcoms. I had never played anything of a supernatural element. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I don't know how to play a vampire, but I didn't say that out loud. So I went into the bathroom when I had the prosthetic on, and I just looked in the mirror and I smiled. And I remember an interview with Anthony Hopkins saying that that's how he created Hannibal Lecter. And so I looked in the mirror and I smiled and I thought, wow, that's really creepy looking. And then I was like, that's my key into Darla, into Vampire Girl #1, who became Darla. I was like, I'm just going to play her with like this childlike joy, this Catholic schoolgirl joy, and just make her like, because I'm like, every time I smiled, it just looked so creepy.
What I love about that scene is, like, especially, in the pilot, they frame you to be like, you're going to be the victim. And then suddenly it's such a good misdirect. But I just love that then they turned your character into like someone who would last for a long time. You end up getting staked by Angel. And I think it's like episode 7, but not before they established that you were his sire and former lover, which was the perfect reason to bring you back on Angel a few years later. So when and how did you find out that they wanted to resurrect you for Angel, and how did you feel about reprising the character then?
So at that time, when Angel was in season 1, they were filming on the Paramount lot, and I was filming on the Paramount lot at the same time. I was filming on a show called Roswell that was on the same network, and I ran into David Boreanaz, and he gave me a huge hug, and he was like, "We're bringing you back, Benz." And I was like, "There's no way." Like, I poofed. Once you poof as a vampire, like, you're dead. Like, he's like, "We're bringing you back." And I was like, "Well, great. I would love that." Like, and then it was like a week later, I got a call. And originally it was just flashbacks. And then for that season finale, I remember they sent a script, and they're like, "We're bringing you back to life. Here's the script," but they didn't. It was in the last page of the script, but that page was missing because they didn't want to reveal. So I'm like reading the whole, going like, "How? I'm not in it, guys. Who am I playing?" And then they sent me the page separately because they were like, "We don't want anybody to know." And then there I was, naked in a box.
How you would always want to be brought back to a show, right?
Yes. And then I remember doing season 2. I was still in the beginning. It was Darla was brought back to life, and I was told like she was still a vampire. And then like halfway through, Joss came running on the set and was like, "You're human. Like you're still like we have this great storyline. You're so it was like." And I was like, "Oh my God, I've been playing her like she's still a vampire." He's like, "Nobody will know."
And what was it like working with David?
David and I always had from day one on Buffy, we always had great chemistry together. I mean, we were of, there were like, you had the younger people on Buffy, and then you had the older people, and we were part of the older people crowd. And so we really connected, and we had like great work chemistry together, and just really enjoyed working together. And I mean, we would get the giggles just because we're getting paid to run around and play make-believe that we're vampires. And like, this is fun.
And they really explored the character of Darla so much more on Angel, and she was, like you said, she was human for a bit, then she was back to being a vampire, then she was pregnant with Angel and her child. Did you have a favorite storyline for Darla on Angel?
Oh, I love them all, really. I really felt they were able to have a lot of fun with her, the writers. And I was told that, like, in the writers' room, when they would read the scripts aloud, everybody fought to play Darla, because I just think that she was a character that they could do anything with. I mean, she was 400 and some years old. But
didn't look a day over 399.
Right? I mean, with that prosthetic on, let's be honest, I did look 400. But I just think they just leaned into having a lot of fun with her, and then I really leaned into the fun of playing her as well. And and every week it was a challenge on Angel. Like, I mean, one time, I had to ride a horse through fire. I had to be buried alive. I had to sing. It was always something that they were throwing at me that I had never done before as an actor. And that I was like, wow, this is like, can I do it? Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. And what did you think of how they ended up ending Darla's storyline by having her stake herself to protect their baby? Did you like that as like an ending for her arc?
I thought it was really beautiful. Tim Minear had been wanting to kill Darla for a while. Like, he wanted to be the one to kill Darla, and he had a bunch of different theories. And like, one way was like, he thought, wouldn't it be funny if like Darla was like spying on like the Angel group, and she tripped and fell and like accidentally impaled herself on like a wood stake, and like they didn't know. Like, she just poofed and disappeared. But at the time I was filming a miniseries for Steven Spielberg, and I remember they sent me the script, and I was filming up in Vancouver, and they sent me the script, and they're like, and with a note from Joss and Tim saying, "We really hope you love this as much as we do." And I read this script, and I was bawling my eyes out, because finally, like, Darla had some redemption.
Yeah.
And because at this point, the fans hated Darla so much. Thank God there wasn't social media at the time. There were the posting boards, and I had to like not go on them because there was so much hatred for me and for Darla. And like, so it was really amazing. They were able to take a really great, like, evil character and all of a sudden make people fall in love with her in the end.
Yeah, it really was a beautiful moment. And just this year, there was an announcement that a Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival series is in the works, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is supposed to return. Now, do you know anything more about this? And if the creators wanted to resurrect Darla once again, would you be up for reprising the role?
I mean, I don't really know much about it. I know as much as everybody, that's what you read in the press. I think it's fantastic. I think there's so much room and space there for great storytelling. And I also feel that the show, I go to fan conventions and I meet people who weren't even born when we did the original one who have discovered it through, different streaming services and like absolutely are obsessed with it. So the show has stood the test of time, which is fantastic. And so I do think there is space and need and want for a Buffy revamp. Yes, of course, in a heartbeat. I would love to play Darla again now that I'm in my 50s and I have a little more life experience. And I feel like as an actress, I have more work experience as well. But the reality is vampires don't age. I am not a vampire in real life. No,
to be honest, you don't look like you've aged at all. So I think you could pull off Darla again,
Well, if they felt, listen, I would say yes in a heartbeat, but it would have to make sense and it would have to sit in the vision that they have. And, I'm here if they would like Darla to make an appearance. I might need a little bit of CGI to make me look a little more youthful. But no, Darla is a character that I would love to revisit now, especially that I'm more of a seasoned actress and I have a lot more life experience behind me. I was 24 when I first started playing her. I feel like, in the 20 some years since the show that I have a lot more depth and nuance that I could bring to the character, but we'll see.
Yeah, we would love to. So we're so excited about the reboot. We would love to see as many characters back, and yours especially. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
And this is one reboot I will definitely watch. So.
Oh, awesome. Moving on to Jawbreaker. Now, I know this isn't necessarily a horror film, but it does involve a murder, and it's so fucking iconic. We had to talk to you about it. How did you get involved with this film? And did you read specifically for Marcy, or did you read for all the girls?
No, they brought Lisa Beach was the casting director, and she brought me in to read for Marcy, and I read for her first, and she was just like, "You nailed it! Like, come and meet Darren." And so then I went in and read for Darren, and talk about one of the best auditions I've ever had in my entire life, where no matter every word I said, the room was laughing, and I was like, I don't know. It was like, okay, if I don't get this part, I don't know what's going on with my
And
career.
in front of Lisa Beach, she did Scream, right?
Yeah.
I've seen Lisa Beach's name everywhere.
Yeah, she's a big casting director, and she was a big supporter of mine early on, and so it was really fantastic. And so, I went through the audition process to book Marcy, but I think they knew right away, that I was their Marcy. So yeah, and to me, when I read this script, Darren Stein has a very specific, there's a rhythm to his dialogue, and it was just a type of rhythm that I inherently picked up on the rhythm of the comedy and how to deliver it. Because Marcy was kind of like the punchline in a lot of the scenes. So, and I had done mostly comedy. I got into acting to be a comedic actress, not necessarily Buffy and Angel kind of switched my career path. But most people in Hollywood knew me as the comedy girl.
I know. We're a horror focused podcast, but I would love to talk about Desperate Housewives and when you were on Boy Meets World and what's it, Step by Step.
Yeah.
Whole other podcast.
You did all
other
those
podcast.
You're the part 2 of the Julie Benz
Yes,
interview.
oh my gosh, we could talk to you. Every episode's Julie Benz.
Yeah, we love Darren Stein. We love his work, and including you. This film has such an incredible cast. But rather than asking about what it was like to work with each one of the main girls, we're gonna play a quick little game with you where we ask you some simple questions. Don't worry, not like trivia or anything.
Not like Jigsaw.
Yeah, and you just just have to answer with the name of the Jawbreaker co-star who matches the description best, okay? So either just Rose McGowan, Judy Greer, or Rebecca Gayheart. You just have to answer with one of those. Okay. Among these co-stars, who was the biggest jokester on set?
I would say Judy Greer.
I could see that. Yeah.
Who was the most reserved?
Nobody.
Wow.
You're like Marilyn Manson?
Tatiana Ali.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who had the strongest opinion on how they wanted to play their character in the film?
Rose McGowan.
Okay.
Who was the most like their character in real life?
Rebecca Gayheart.
Oh, yeah, sweet. Who did you become closest to while filming?
Rebecca Gayheart.
Who did you stay the closest with after filming?
Rebecca Gayheart and Darren Stein.
Oh, that's really nice. You know, like great cast, amazing. And I have this vivid memory when I saw Jawbreaker in the theaters, I was like 19, and right next to me, someone was sitting there, and right when it ended, and this is a true story, they yelled out of nowhere, "So what happened? Did they go to jail? What happened?" So that begs the question, and I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, what do you think happened afterward to Courtney, Marcy, Julie, and Fern? Like, do you think they all went to jail or just Courtney? What do you think in your mind happened?
Oh, I think Courtney probably talked her way out of it. Maybe Marcy served some time.
Or Marcy
took the fall.
You took the fall.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because it's funny because it's treated so lightly, which is good, obviously, but it's like you're like, wait, their actions did result in a murder.
It's murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darren had an idea to do like a sequel, like a women in prison film with Courtney and Marcy. But I actually think, listen, Courtney is a master manipulator and Marcy is, not so smart. So I feel like at some point it would have been Marcy serving the most time.
She would have put it on Marcy. I could totally see that. Yeah.
And did you think those walking through the hallway scenes would become so iconic and copied?
No, they were, first of all, I would say out of Rebecca and Rose, I definitely was the least experienced looking cool walking down a hallway in high heels. And for some reason, my shoes kept because they were vintage shoes, they sounded like a duck quacking. So it was like all we could do not to laugh during those scenes. But, when you're filming it, because, we're not walking in slow motion, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We're just walking down the hall. So it wasn't until I think we saw it, and then with the music and everything, that we understood how iconic it could be. And then it became such an iconic moment.
I love it.
The
score.
I remember seeing that thinking, God, I want a slow-mo hallway strutting scene. Like, didn't everybody who went to school, guy or girl?
If I was in high school, I would have gone down the hallway like that.
Yeah. Quacking the whole time.
I was a bit fashion obsessed in high school, and I did treat the hallway as my runway.
Were you voted best dressed?
I was.
Me too.
So was Tim.
That's all I peaked in high school.
Me too. So that's all I wanted in high school. I wanted to be best dressed and best actress, and I got both. Obviously, I didn't go for smartest or most likely to succeed or.
I got one. I didn't get best actor, and I'm still upset.
Julie Benz and Tim Murdoch both voted best dressed in high school.
Was it?
Rose made fun of me because I shared this story with her, and she still gets tickled by it. That I kept a clothing journal throughout high school, and I never wore the same ensemble twice. Now, I did have an older sister, and I had a mom who we were all the same size, so I had massive amounts of things to choose from. And yes, I never wore jeans in school. I was always in a dress. I was always dressed like I was going Now I can't get out of my sweatpants. Like I peaked. Like I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, I tried not to. I had an older brother, and I would use his sweaters and my dad's sweaters, even though I was swimming in them. I did not want to like wear the same clothes. I get it.
Yeah.
And I had an older sister, so I wore the same 3 outfits every week to high school, and not voted best dressed. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, last year was the 25th anniversary of Jawbreaker, and we saw that you, Rebecca Gayheart, Judy Greer, and writer-director Darren Stein all reunited at the Academy Museum for a screening and Q&A. What was it like seeing everyone again and revisiting the film?
I mean, it was first, it was super exciting that they wanted to do this honor for, because, you know, the movie when it came out wasn't received very well. It didn't have, you know, the reviews weren't great, but the reviewers were not the demographic that Darren was aiming towards. And to know that this little movie all of a sudden, like over the years, has found such legs where it's become a cult classic. It was a real honor to be honored at the Academy for Darren's storytelling, basically. And it was great. I mean, when we found out, of course, you know, we have a group chat, and, you know, we were like, what are you going to wear? What are you going to wear? What are you going to wear? Or is this like a jeans thing? Is this like a thing? Like, what are we getting dressed? Like, what are we doing? And so then I threw out the idea, wouldn't it be great if we all dressed in the color palette of our character? Because it is Jawbreaker, and I didn't want us all showing up in the same kind of shades of black that we would normally maybe reach for. So, and that's how, like, we all looked like a Jawbreaker, basically.
I'm so glad you did that.
We saw, because you're wearing green, right? And is it true that you're wearing a necklace that says Foxy on it?
Yes, I had it made. It's not the original one. I had one made specifically for that because I thought it's just iconic and it would be like a fun thing.
Oh, chef's
I love
kiss.
That you did that.
So cool.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy they all agreed because sometimes my ideas are really out there. So
I love that you guys have a group chat, like all 25 years later. It's like Jawbreaker group chat or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So, you know, moving on to your 4-season run as Rita on the original Dexter series. Now, I've got to say, my boyfriend and I absolutely loved your character. Just her arc of, you know, being a survivor of domestic abuse and becoming stronger and more confident as the series went on. It kind of felt like she was Dexter's only link to a normal life other than his sister Deb. And funny enough, I've heard you mention that you originally auditioned for both Rita and Deb. So can you tell us about like the Dexter audition process and how you ended up being cast as Rita versus Deb?
Yeah. So when I was sent the audition, I read the script and I was like, oh my God, this is the type of show I would love to watch. Like, yes. And they were like, well, they want you to read for both the role of Deb and Rita. And I was like, okay. And so I looked and I'm like, oh, I'm a total Deb. I am Deb. I am so Deb. And I worked so hard on Deb. Like, I changed the way I walked, the way I talked. Like I wanted to swear because I love swear words.
Me too.
And I wanted to be on TV and use my swear words. And like, you know, I just thought I am Deb. I am 1,000% Deb. So I didn't work on Rita at all. I went in and read for the I had to jump through hoops on this one. So I had to read for the casting assistant first. And I read both parts and she's like, you're great for both. She's like, so then the next step was I read for the casting director and she was like, you're great for both. So, and sometimes that can hurt you if like they can't
decide. Yeah.
Like, so then I went to read for the producers and Jim Manos, who was the producer at the time. I walked in the room and as soon as I walked in the room, he's like, oh my God, you're our Rita. And I was like, oh, no. No, I'm going to read Deb too. I'm reading both parts. And he's like, no, you're Rita. And I'm like,
you should have said, fuck off. I'm dead.
I know. And I was like, but I've prepared both and let me start with Deb. And he's like, no, you are Rita. And so he's like, and I literally hadn't worked on it. I mean, I knew it, but I hadn't like spent as much time. I mean, Deb, I rehearsed. And it taught me a very important lesson as an actor that I wasn't Deb. I was Rita. I didn't need to do all that work. For me to play Deb, it would be like shoving like a square peg into a round hole. That's what, and honestly, the amount of work I was putting into it was like, it wasn't a natural fit. And there was just something about my being and my presence that just screamed Rita. And sometimes as actors, you forget like that sometimes the roles the parts that seem like the absolute simplest to play are actually the best ones for you, because like I didn't have to manufacture anything, or like I was enough. I could just be, and it was enough to play her.
That's great advice. And also it shows how like, yeah, if you can just sometimes like, I guess producers casting people can just see a character in someone. Like, like you said, you just walked in and they knew you were Rita. That's pretty amazing.
I know, like when I go in, I'm always like, I'm a supermodel, right?
But I will tell you this. I still had to jump through hoops, because then I had to read for studio, and then I had to test at the network. And the first time I had to end up testing twice, because the first time I tested, they thought it was a weird note. They thought my hair was too shiny, and they thought I looked too put together to play Rita. So I was asked to come back with no makeup on and not looking very good. So
you're like, sure, fun.
So I took that note to heart, and the night before, I had to be there at like 9:15 in the morning. So the night before, I drank a bottle of red wine. So my eyes were super puffy. I put like black mascara in the roots of my hair. I pulled out like these ugly sweats in the sweater, and like just nothing matched. And I didn't shower the next day, so I had like that like wine hangover like flop sweat. And I had never done this for a role before, and I was like, I've gone too far, like, and not a stitch of makeup on, absolutely nothing, like nothing, not even mascara, nothing, nothing, just nothing. And I show up and I sign in, and I'm sitting there, and now next to me is a giant bag filled with makeup and hair stuff, just in case they look and they're like, oh, can you just, that like too far. So I'm sitting there, and the casting director and producers, they come out, and I see them. They're looking at the sign-in sheet, and they're looking around, and they're like, well, she signed in, but where is she? And they like looked right past me, and I was like, oh, hi, I'm here. And they were like, oh. And I remember the director looked at me, and he's like, oh my God, are you wearing a prosthetic?
What?
I was like, no, you guys told me to come in with no makeup on. And they were like, oh my God, it looks amazing. You look amazing. This is amazing. And so I knew before I even went in the room that I was going to get the part, because I took the risk to really look like, and it's not that Rita needed to look like shit. It's just that she needed to look like she didn't have her shit together.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like disheveled elegance.
That sounds like the name of like a RuPaul's Drag Race challenge. Like disheveled elegance. That's amazing. Was it like liberating in a way to come to an audition like that, or was it just terrifying?
It was a little terrifying for me. What was liberating though was, because you have to think, I had just come off of Buffy and Angel, and on there, like your death scene, you still got fake lashes on and glitter, right? You wake up on, you wake up from the dead on Angel, and you're in a full glam look going on. Like there's no, that makeup was a big thing on the show. So coming from that into this, but what was liberating was when we went to film the first season, especially, I did not wear any makeup. And my hair, I would do my own hair. Well, they would help me, but like I would braid it at night. And however it looked like in the morning, like I wanted it to look like a baby chewed on it. I know that's a weird description, but that's the idea I had in my head. And the hair woman, Linda, she would help kind of make sure it all matched. But it was great because I didn't have to I didn't have this like hour and change hair and makeup call before rehearsal. Like I came in like a guy who comes in, my call time was rehearsal. And then I'd have 15 minutes in the hair and makeup chair where they'd maybe powder me or covers it or but it was so minimal.
It's almost like everything you learned about Hollywood, they're just like, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah. And what was great was I remember being called brave for going on camera with no makeup on. And I don't actually think there's anything brave about it. I didn't feel brave. I felt like I was playing the character. So it didn't feel but I was kind of applauded in Hollywood for, oh, you're so brave to go on film without makeup on. And I'm like, this makes sense for Rita.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny when they applaud women for, being brave to just be real.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah,
it's so brave to not, glam up for a part. Yeah, that's it. And especially when the part demands it. That is kind of funny. I know you've talked about this a lot, and I'm sorry we have to ask you about this because it was so incredibly devastating. In the season 4 finale, spoiler alert, Rita gets killed by the Trinity Killer, who was played by John Lithgow, in a huge cliffhanger, and it truly altered the show. So how and when did you find out that they were going to kill off Rita, and how did you feel about that decision?
So I only found out a couple days before. And I was devastated. I always say nobody was more devastated than me. There's no one more devastated than how I felt in that moment. I felt like I had failed Rita in some ways. I've talked about this before, where season 1 and season 2, the Dexter Rita relationship was so well done. But a couple of the writers left, and then we got new writers in, and they never seemed to really recapture that dynamic that we had in season 1 and 2. And I know the nature of television, and especially episodic television, where some seasons you have a great storyline, and then sometimes you just take a back seat, and because they have to focus on other things, and then you come back and you have it's all kind of cyclical. I should have spoken up, especially in season 3. I felt in season 3 they were making Rita to be kind of just really silly, and I had expressed my concern to my manager, but at the same time, we were like, I love being on the show, so I didn't take it further than just having a conversation with my manager about it, because I'm like, this is the nature of the beast and it'll change. And they have to focus on other characters. And because there were other actors during season 1 and season 2 who weren't happy with their storylines. And I'm like, I'm really happy. I love my storyline. So it's the nature of the beast, of what it means to do television. So I just thought, okay, it's just taking the back seat. And I have since, in hindsight, realized that I should have spoken up more and should have fought for her voice to be, not elevated, but I felt like it had veered to all of a sudden she was kind of reduced to the ridiculousness of she was the butt of the joke, basically. And they basically turned her into the villain to Dexter in some ways. And I think that led to, I don't know, if I could go back in time and speak up more for her, then maybe there would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, I remember watching for the first time, and I remember my boyfriend and I being devastated because we loved this character. And you're right that I can see how the storyline did sort of change from the first 2 seasons to the next 2, when there was the weird neighbor and the cheating kind of thing. And I was like, wait, what's going on?
That was so that was just not, there was a lot in that didn't really make sense.
Yeah, no, but it's like, but what's weird is that moment of killing her, like, really it changed, like, Dexter, the whole show. And I was wondering, after having to deal with the death, how tough was it for you to come back and film the first episode of season 5, or did you feel like filming the funeral, did that provide some closure for you as an actress also for Rita?
Well, it was tricky times for me because I was told that it was a last minute decision to kill Rita off. And then somebody came to me who had no stake in the game and said that's not true. That was always the plan from the beginning of the season. And so I felt really lied to. And they really stuck to their guns that, oh no, it was a last minute decision. And so when they asked me to come back for season 5, I was already on another show. I was doing No Ordinary Family for ABC at the time. And ironically, they didn't want me to do it. And we had to convince them that it's the right thing to do to help them end the character. So you know what I mean? And it was the right thing to do. But I did ask for the pitch notes for season 4 because I don't like to be lied to. And I requested to see the pitch notes before I would agree to go back for that one episode. And they showed them to me and it gave me closure.
Oh,
it gave me closure. So I didn't feel like I had been made a fool of and then I had been lied to. Like there's so much in Hollywood, people lie, they'll lie right to your face. And for me as a woman, it's, if I knew that they had lied to me. Like I was 100% sure. And it was there in the pitch notes. And that's all I wanted was for them to know, like, I knew. And this is all, like, I'll come back and clean up the storyline for you. But don't fucking lie to me.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. No, but really, like that's some inspiring. And stand your ground. And I love that you're like, okay, now I see it in the notes. Y'all fucking lied. It was so.
Yeah, but it was really like I was at a meeting. It was in a meeting and I saw it, and I was like, all right, okay, well, I'll come back. Like I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't go like, you lied to me. It was just like it was confirming because I think they were really confused. Because I was so hurt by the decision. They had just renegotiated my contract. It was really like they ripped the rug out from underneath me. And I remember my manager having a conversation with the executives and they were like, we don't understand why she's so like hurt, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, she's been around a long time. She's been in this business since she was 13 years old. She's been killed off of a ton of different shows. They always enlisted her in the process. Like you're just like 2 days before the last day of filming of the season, you're telling her this. Like you ripped the rug out from underneath her. So of course, like, and that's exactly how I felt, which was, I felt like I was being treated like a child. And there I was like a, 35, 38-year-old woman, like being treated like I'm this like little child. And that's my biggest pet peeve is if you treat me like I'm a child, because I am the youngest in my family.
So am I. Very relatable.
Yeah.
So that's what was really upsetting to me was that they didn't enlist me in the process. Like, on Angel, I mean, they sent me that script. They wanted my opinion on it. They asked me how I felt. They enlisted me.
Yeah, that seems like like common courtesy, you know?
And did you end up watching the rest of Dexter?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I actually didn't even watch the death scene. They had Showtime did a big finale party with fans, and they wanted me to go. And
God.
I was still like, honestly, Rita was a character I had to mourn and grieve. And I think it was because I wasn't enlisted in the process. And I wasn't going to go. And then I decided, I made the decision because the fans were going to be there. And I was like, okay, well, it's not fair to them. Like, I'll go for the first half. So I went for like the pre-cocktail part, the pre-viewing cocktail party. And then as soon as they put the show on, I left because I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm going to be a mess. Like, I'm getting emotional talking about it. Like, I just remembering, like, I'm going to bawl my eyes out if I'm here at the end. And I don't want to share that vulnerability with everybody. Like, that's not. So I left and went home and didn't watch it. and it was, to me, I was concerned, like, what if people weren't shocked? Like, what if they didn't care? What if the fans didn't care that Rita was, what if they were like, oh, thank God, finally.
Oh, we cared. We cared.
Right?
I remember that moment too. Like, it's taking me back to when I first saw it. That we cared. Trust me. Yeah.
So then it wasn't until like a couple of days later, I went out to dinner with some friends in West Hollywood, of all places,
Ooh.
and walked into the restaurant, and like literally you could hear all the talking just stop. And people coming up and giving me hugs and crying because they couldn't believe I was still alive. and like me walking down the street and like people stopping their cars and coming out and like bawling that I'm still alive. And I'm like, it's not a snuff film.
You're like, hey, I'm still
But that's
here.
when I realized what the impact was.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
that's
I
a
have
great
chosen
story.
not to watch it. And honestly, it's really hard to watch a show after you've been on it because like the magic's kind of gone, it's not abnormal that I stopped watching it.
Yeah.
Well, from a hardcore Dexter fan, and this is the absolute truth, the seasons you were on the show were the best seasons of the show. And I'm not just saying that, like, it did really falter after that. Like, when I say it altered the show, it really did. They made some more questionable decisions. They killed off more characters that were very questionable. It just seemed like it just couldn't find its footing. So you got the best of Dexter. I can tell you.
I mean, in hindsight, to be given the most talked about moment in the history of the series, and it still is to this day, even with all the different iterations of the show, people still talk about Rita and Rita's death. I didn't realize that in the moment, but now I see, like, in many ways, it was a big gift that they gave me, even though it felt so personal.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So moving on to 2008 Saw 5, where you played Britt,
Switching gears.
Yeah, switching gears totally. She was kind of like an anti-hero because she like survived Jigsaw's traps, but she also was really shady as a real estate developer. So now that first trap where everyone has collars around their necks and you're all like fighting to move forward in like a pulley system, it seemed really complicated. How the hell was that filmed?
It was very complicated. They had people behind the wall pulling us back and forth, and like it was all very choreographed. And we rehearsed it a lot with when we were being pulled back, like because they had to, there was a lot of yelling basically going on. And the sets feel so real, and I would say. That was our first day of filming, was that scene, like the first day for the people in the traps. And so I got a little confused right before they went to roll the first take. I remember calling the director over, and I was like, wait a second, what if I don't get to the key first? What's going to happen?
They're like, we're chopping your head off.
And yeah, because that's what I was like, what if I don't get to the key? Like, I also was the only one in like 6-inch high heels, and everybody else is in like sneakers. Again, my choice, but maybe not the smartest choice. But he was like, Julie, we'll cut. Like, did you read the script? Like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. You're right. And he's like, this isn't real. But it felt so real.
And when you were filming Saw 5, we read that you were having nightmares. Like, what were you actually dreaming about? Like, were you actually like Jigsaw or like? I mean,
It's first, okay, so here's the whole thing, because I've heard some people respond like, why did you even take this movie if like you were too scared? Because I like a challenge, okay? Also because I have a personal connection to the Saw franchise in that many years prior, right before the first Saw was done, I was doing a movie in Australia with a producer named Greg Hoffman. And Greg was telling me about his next movie, and it was Saw. And I was like, no, he was like, it's really dark. Like, he was like, we don't know. We don't know. It's like, it's a really dark horror film. We don't know if it's going to be a success or not, whatever. So cut to like a couple years later, Greg died of a massive heart attack. Okay. So I just felt like when the offer came in, I felt like, oh, hi, Greg. Like, right. And now I had tried to watch the first Saw, and listen, this is why the movies are a success. I'm not dissing on them at all. They are psychologically damaging. Okay. They are psychologically terrifying. They are not like anything. They're, Freddy Krueger, Jason, there's nothing. They got nothing on the Saw franchise. Okay. And I don't know if it's the puppet. I don't know if it's just the psychological. I don't know. It is one of the reasons why it's the biggest horror franchise in the world is because it fucks you up.
Yeah, it's the rewatchability factor. I mean, because Matt loves Halloween, I love Friday 13th. Like, it's hard to watch a Saw film like while eating McDonald's. It's just not easy.
It's not like like you said, it's like it really fucks with you. It
gets inside.
You think about
it. I don't know. So it terrified me. So then to me, I was like, well, okay, hi, Greg, like go back to, hi, Greg, thanks. Like, wow, this is kind of like, this is a sign. And then also going like, well, can I actually be in this movie? Like, can I actually do it? And it was, and by the way, everybody on the crew, because I was like, kind of like, I had another nightmare. Yeah, I dream about the traps and like being stuck and like suffocating and drown. Like, it was all sorts of weird dreams. They're like, they would all laugh because they're like, that was us during the first movie.
Wow.
They're like, it's common. They're like, it was common because you're dealing with such dark, extreme circumstances.
Yeah, day in, day out. I mean, you can't not take that home with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was lucky. We were filming on location in Toronto. I had my little puppy Bamboo, who has since passed away, but he was the cutest little puppy. He was like this tiny little thing, and he was with me, and he kind of kept me like, he helped me a lot. And they even like took pictures of him in the traps, like to make me laugh.
You're like, your puppy's here. Think of your puppy.
Yeah. I was able to have him with me on set, like in between, like to kind of, because it's dark. Like it's dark material.
It is. And I heard you mention that you actually threw up during rehearsal while filming that final trap scene where, listeners, if you haven't seen it, she has to basically put her arm through like a buzzsaw. Sorry, Julie. And bleeds enough blood to open the door. But I guess what I wanted to know is, did it just all feel too real, or what were they actually having you do during that scene?
It just feels too real. They're geniuses. The set design, I mean, it's incredible. I've done some scary. It was the first time things felt like so real. And even in the handsaw thing, I mean, we're putting our hand in there. Nothing is touching my hand. But you hear the noise, and then there's blood squirting up inside, and then and all I could think about is I'm going to have spaghetti arm because it's like chopping me all the way down my elbow, and I'm going to have like the spaghetti arm. All of it was just like, it was too much.
So then I have to ask, because is it true, another thing that I heard or read, that you've never seen Saw 5? Did you not go to the premiere, or what happened?
Did you like walk the red carpet and then duck out?
I think I was out of town at filming when they had the premiere. I don't remember being there. So I think I was filming away. But then I saw snippets of it when I had to do some ADR, and it really like I started having like that panicky fear again, and was like, I just don't think this is something I can watch.
Oh, okay.
So did you see the ones prior or after?
No, I only saw the first Saw. That was it.
Okay. I have a.
And by the way, people at conventions, they bring that puppet up to me, and I immediately get and I know it's fake. I mean, trust me, I saw how it worked on set, but the thing, scary.
Okay, so Julie, I have an amazing idea. I think that we should do an audio commentary with you where we sit with you the first time you ever watch Saw 5 and get your real life comments. What do you think?
I mean, okay.
Oh, I'm totally kidding.
I might cry or I might throw up.
I'm just like, I can't even imagine. Yeah, I think you would be just turned the other way.
And why do you think Saw, the franchise, has just lasted this long? Or what do you think its appeal is?
Well, I think, I just think they hit on something that that resonates. It's like regular people making mistakes and then having to pay for it. Like, you know what I mean? And the revenge aspect and like I don't know. It's not like, oh, run away from Freddy Krueger or run away from Jason. It's like you can't run away from being a bad person.
Right. When you stabbed that girl, I was like, oh.
Well, but I mean, I think your character's like responsible for a fire that killed a bunch of people.
Yeah. She was the one responsible for why everybody's in there. Like it was her. She set it all in motion. So, but I think it's about, listen, I don't think people are inherently bad, but people make bad decisions. And then because of ego or shame, afraid to admit it and and face the consequences for it. And so I think that's very relatable. I think that's like kind of like at its core, at its like essence, it's about that,
Yeah. And then there's just the sick people who like watching really gory.
I think the Saw films, because they are like a person that did a bad thing. So it's like, I'm not saying they deserve to be in traps and die, but you are kind of seeing someone get their comeuppance.
Yeah.
Well, because there's people who did bad things that didn't take accountability.
Right.
Yes.
The movie should be called Accountability.
So you've appeared in a number of horror films and other genres over the last decade. Now, unfortunately, obviously, we don't have time to cover all of them, but we did want to ask you about just a few. And first up, the 2015 sci-fi thriller Circle, about 50 strangers who wake up on an alien ship and have to keep killing one person at a time until only one remains. Now, we found this film to be really fascinating, just all the different themes it kind of incorporated, like certain people thinking their lives are more important than others. And you play one of the 50, a character called the wife. What got you interested in being a part of this film in particular?
I was looking for a project to do. I had some time in between filming a show that I was working on, and my manager, he's like, listen, there's this script. He goes, it's super low budget, but it shoots here in LA. He's like, it's really interesting. Like, you should read it. So I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. And it's these two young guys who wrote and directed it. And he was like, they want to meet with you. And I was like, of course. So I met with them and I told them, I was like, listen, I really like I like this. I like this a lot. It feels like 12 Angry Men, which was kind of what they were going for. The themes are something that everybody can relate to. It's terrifying as well. And I'm going to hitch my wagon to you. Like, I'm going to hitch my wagon to you. You guys are young, you're hungry, you're creative. I like this. I like this concept. Let's do this. And so, but unfortunately, they had already cast the majority of the movie. So I really wanted to play. I wanted them to change the rich man to the rich woman.
Oh, and the rich man was played by your Jawbreaker prom date.
So Michael
No,
McLafferty.
no. He wasn't the rich man.
No, I think he was the lawyer.
The lawyer.
He was
Yeah.
the lawyer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah,
I was like, wait a second.
We noticed
Yeah.
Michael McLafferty, who plays
Yeah.
the guy that you're like sitting on his lap at prom in
Yeah, yeah.
Jawbreaker, was in it. What, like,
Did you
so,
guys
We
reconnect?
worked on, by the way, we worked on another project way before Jawbreaker. We worked on something called Barefoot Executive. We played two soap opera actors, like
that's so
in
cool.
like this thing. Like, yeah, I've worked with him so much.
Oh, that's so crazy. Wait, so you wanted to be the rich one, but they had already cast. Yeah.
They had already cast it as the rich man because I thought that would be it'd be an interesting slant because he says a lot of really hateful things. And by the way, this was before we had Karens.
Right. No, that's
But-
very today.
Yeah.
But I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if it was a woman saying that versus a man? But I ended up playing the wife, and I was super happy. And it was a really, probably one of the most fun experiences I've ever had because we made a choice. I mean, it was 9 days of filming, and we all as a cast made a decision that we were shooting it in order. And it was in the round, so the camera would move. So we would be there standing on our dots for everybody's stuff. Like there's no like going off and sitting in a green room. They didn't even have a green room though. So there was like no like it was like if we're gonna do this, let's approach it and be all in. And it was really great. Like it was a really great experience. I'm so close with all those actors still, and like
there's another horror connection. I think Lisa Pelkin was in Ghoulies.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to know what actually happened to people when they got zapped. Like, did they just have to pretend to be shocked, or were they like jerked backwards? Like, what happened to the people? Do you remember if they just had to, if anything happened?
They just like throw themselves
or did they just throw themselves down?
That's something I don't remember.
It's okay. It's just like I'm sure they added like the.
I think there were pads and they jerked us back.
It is.
I totally enjoyed watching.
We really love that
They're
movie.
doing a sequel.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a whole different circle.
Of course, yeah.
It's called Square.
It's called Square.
Square?
No, it is just one of those finds that like we were doing research for this interview and I was like, oh, I hadn't heard of this. And then we watched, we're like, this is really
I totally
interesting.
enjoyed like looking at all your stuff, like all your career.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much fun.
It was. And then the next year you played the lead in a supernatural horror movie called Havenhurst, which takes place at like this gothic apartment building where people are being murdered who don't stick to their rehab plans. Now, one thing about this that was interesting, the big opening scene starred Scream Queen Danielle Harris, but then you guys don't share any scenes together. Did you get to meet Danielle at all during filming or at any events for the film?
Yeah, we met because we had to do like French photos, like we had to do the photos together. And I had met her before through different conventions and stuff. I really love her. I think she's fantastic. So
yeah, she's such like a scream queen.
She's just iconic, and by the way, she can scream really well.
Oh,
and how did you fall through the bar, like through the walls?
Yeah, how did they do that? They're like having you when you in the movie, you get trapped in these walls and you're falling. Like, should you remember how they did that?
I remember that specifically. They built these narrow hallway things that that were elevated, and then they had like trap doors. And the one where you just see I just like drop completely. I have never been more terrified. Like the sound department was like, oh my God, your mic is picking up your heartbeat. Like you could hear my heart pounding because as a kid, I fell through a trap door and the door hit me in the face. And it was like, I was a little kid and it was very traumatic. So I just kept having that and I was, the stunt department was like, you just have to stand like, don't pitch forward, don't pitch back. Cause like you'll either hit your head or you'll hit your face. And I'm like, and so shooting all this stuff, like all the chasing and stuff, like they could hear and granted, I was supposed to be terrified anyway, being chased by this crazy looking person. But literally like my heart, like they had to kept moving my mic because they're like, your heart is like taking over.
I think they should have kept it in and asked something.
I remember feeling like I blacked out because I had to hit the mark without even looking at it. I had to be in a very precise position and they would pull the trap door, right? And I just remember like hitting the position and the next thing you know, I was on the ground. It was like, and I was just like, okay, I did it.
Wait. I want to hear about what trap door did you fall through when you were a kid?
In a barn,
Yeah.
they have those like trap doors for like the hay.
Oh, yeah.
Like we was a kid playing in a barn with a bunch of other kids and I was then they let the thing and it hit me in the face.
So someone did it purposely?
No, it was
okay.
we were little kids.
Yeah.
It was not I think it was like little kid. I hope they didn't do it
Oh
purposely.
God. Well, and in Havenhurst, you also have a number of fight scenes with like the murder. You're getting thrown everywhere. Like, how much of that did you do, or did you have a stunt double like for all those fight scenes?
Had a stunt double for sure. Did as much as they would let me. And I've always been, because of my athletic background, I've always been fairly good at that stuff, making it look like scrappy and not like a real fighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They did definitely have a stunt double. A lot of times they do that too. A lot of the stunt doubles, because we were on a tight schedule filming wise. And so they can leave a second unit to film the actual fight with the stunt doubles versus while we go film other scenes.
No, that's great. We just have a few final questions before we wrap up. We noticed that you've appeared at a number of conventions and Comic-Cons. What is the most common question you get asked by fans at these events?
Oh, God. I would say most people want to know what Michael C. Hall is like.
Really?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been my question.
Oh, wow. So even more than they ask about the Rita's death?
I guess they ask about, a lot of people like to share with me their trauma from it.
You're like, I'm not a therapist.
You're like, hey, I had to deal with my own.
I've learned that like a lot of the people just want hugs and they want to know that it was okay to feel that way about a fictional character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, it is my job as a therapist, as an actress, therapist is kind of person to make them feel okay in their feelings and to make it be okay, because it was traumatic for everybody.
Do you still keep in touch with Michael C. Hall at all, or are you guys not after?
Listen, Michael and Jennifer, they both, and David Zayas as well. A lot of the cast are on the East Coast, so I do try to see them whenever I can. If I get to the East Coast, I spent some time with them in Pittsburgh a couple years ago at Steel City Con. And it's literally like we just pick up right where we left off. I do see C.S. Lee and James Remar a little bit more because they're the West Coast faction of the show. So it's just, it's a different coast.
No, totally. Okay, and then another random question. If you could be, because we're a horror podcast, obviously, if you could be in the next installment of any current horror franchise, which would you choose? If you could pick any horror franchise and they're doing a new movie, which would you want to be in? Oh, you're like, none. You can be honest. No, totally. After your experience on Saw.
Knocking on your door like, hey, we're reviving Friday the 13th.
Or Scream or, Halloween or is there any that you were like, I could do that? Or maybe no, wait, you hate
She doesn't want zombies.
You hate zombies.
No zombies. Okay. I'm not into zombies. Okay. I think zombies are like zombies are actors walking around going,
okay, so no Night of the Living Dead remakes for you. Are there any that maybe, or I'm trying to think if there's ones, or maybe not. Yeah.
I think I could do Scream because I don't think Scream is that scary.
Yeah, it's more like it has
It's
elements
pulp
of
culture.
comedy.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
Fun. Yeah. I think I could do Scream. I mean, it would be nice to revisit Brit and Saw and see what her spaghetti arm is like.
No, but you know what's so funny about that? Because they had a movie, I think it was Saw 3D, where they brought back some of the survivors, and we were
Yeah.
like, "Where is
'Cause
Brit?"
you can totally be in another one.
Yeah, what happened with that? Or did they not?
Oh, they never. They never asked. It could have been a budget thing.
That's true.
Well, but you know what that means, because Saw 11 is coming out
Yeah.
this year. You could still come back.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're knocking
But I
down.
want the spaghetti arm. I want my arm like just hanging down. I mean,
Oh
I
my
think
God.
she probably would have had it cut off or something.
Oh, she'd have a
I
prosthetic.
was totally looking like when the guy comes over to you and like I was like, "Where's her arm? Where's her arm?"
Oh, yeah.
And I had to hide it because I was like, I wanted to see this. Like, I called it spaghetti arm. I'm like, she's gonna have spaghetti arm.
And what are you up to today? Are you working on something fun?
Or any projects you can tell us about?
I have a couple projects I have one in development and one further along in development, but nothing I can speak about right now.
Oh, damn it.
I understand.
Well, and I guess, I mean, again, I know horror is, you have kind of a love-hate relationship with it, but you would be willing to be in more horror films in the future? I'm hoping?
Yes,
Okay,
of
good,
course.
good.
Because I do love it. Listen, I love being scared. Not as scared as Saw, but I do love being scared.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We as horror fans, it's like, and that's the thing. We talk to a lot of people on this podcast, and we always say, like, when you fall in love with a character in any series, TV series, horror series, like, you follow their career forever. And
Absolutely.
I think like horror fans are really, really loyal to people in horror.
Listen, I've been very blessed to have had so many kind of be a part of so many good horror genre projects, and I appreciate it so much. And it's also, in some ways, I always say this, like, especially like on like Buffy and Angel, like I could put so much spin on the ball with Darla. You know what I mean? There was like, you could like, and that's kind of how it is in horror films, and genre specific, is like, as an actor, the given circumstances are more extreme. You have a little more leeway on storytelling. Like the world is just a whole different world. And so you can touch on topics and subjects in a different way than just the mainstream way of telling a story. And so I find it as an actress a lot more challenging than, say, if I was on like Dawson's Creek. You know what I mean?
No, totally. Are you kidding? We talk about how like these award ceremonies need to recognize horror actors more, because like the amount, like the emotional trauma that you have to go through to get to these places. Like you talking about the trap.
You look at The Substance.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone. I mean, that movie, knowing what I know about prosthetics, watching both Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore's work. I mean, she was robbed of an Oscar. I'm just going to say it.
We agree, 100%.
But it was in many ways such an honor to have that role recognized at the Oscars, because it was a horror film. I mean, it's a body horror. It's a genre film. Listen, I don't go to the movie theater very often. I went and saw that at the movie theater.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, we're so proud. I know, but that's great. I mean, look, if you can see The Substance, you're on your way to see Saw 5, okay?
I will say the last third, I was kind of like...
I think the whole theater was.
Yeah, it's a little messy.
Yeah.
It's a little messy, the last third, but I think the extraordinary work that was done, the extraordinary makeup, the prosthetics, it was extraordinary.
Oh yeah.
And man, I'm not bashing Honora. I also like that movie as well. It just, to me, felt like this was a role of a lifetime and a way to honor a career in was very bummed when.
I don't think you're alone.
I can't even tell you. That's another podcast.
We were
shocked. I threw my phone. I was very angry because, like you're saying, like it was, she deserved it. It would have meant so much, not just for her and her long career, but for the horror genre, for so much. It had so much more meaning to it if they had given that award to her. And so it was very unfortunate. We have
some people say she was substanced out of the.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony.
Irony. The only saving grace, and then I'll get to our final question, was that Mikey Madison played Ghostface in Scream 5. So she did have a horror connection, so we were happy about that. Yeah, but that was the only saving grace.
You know Julie saw Scream 5.
Oh, yeah, Julie's a huge fan. Scream 5. Yeah. Okay, so we have one final question. We ask this to every single person that we interview. Kind of puts you on the spot. But what is one thing, just one thing you can tell us about your experience working on any of the projects we discussed today that you've never told in an interview, at a convention, on a podcast, or anywhere? Just one thing about Buffy Angel, Dexter, Jawbreaker, Saw 5, just one thing about your experience working on one of these horror projects that you've never told before. And it doesn't have to be juicy or anything. It can just be anything, but, or, whatever you feel like.
One thing I never told. I mean, the problem is I tell everybody everything. I'm an open book.
That's a good thing.
Let me see.
I have a question. Was that your hair in Saw 5?
The brunette.
Oh, it was a wig.
It was part wig, part my hair. So I had just gotten done doing Punisher Warzone, and they dyed my hair dark for that. But then I was getting ready to go back onto Dexter. So I had already started the process to go back to blonde. And then Lionsgate asked if I'd be in Saw 5. And they liked me as a brunette, but I had already started the process of going back to blonde. So what they did... Oh, no, nobody knows this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're answering our question. Yeah.
What they did was they dyed the front part, like my bangs, they dyed them brown. And then that was all fake hair. And they left, so underneath the dark brown wig was my hair blonde. So for 3 weeks, I called it... I called it hooker hair. Where like from one, from the front, I'm one woman, and then from behind, I'm a different woman.
You're like an executive hooker.
Because it was literally dark brown bangs and then blonde. The rest. It was awful. But I would be working out at the gym, and women would come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, I love your hair," and I'm like, "Oh no, this isn't a thing. This is." Not a thing. Don't do this at home, please. You're
a trendsetter.
No, it literally I shouldn't have said it. I called it hooker hair.
It's okay. You could say sex worker.
Yeah.
But you know what? You totally answered a question, because I have a feeling maybe you haven't talked about your hair dyeing from Saw before.
No. And that was the year too, where I was every hair color. I was blonde, red, brunette, and then sex worker hair. And just seeing the different men that you attract based on hair color.
Oh, interesting.
Is a whole, because I was single during that time, and it was a whole experience.
Oh, wow.
That's another podcast too.
White, so maybe I should go blonde.
I would say brunette, actually.
Yeah, Tim, you could go. Tim could be, wait. Well, then, if we're just going to keep it on hair real quick. So in Havenhurst, you're a brunette for that. Was there any specific reason as to why you were a brunette in that, or were they just let's make her a brunette?
No, there was. They had hired somebody else, and that person fell out. Whoever it was, I don't remember who it was. But I was the second choice, and they liked that she had this black hair. So I literally, I remember that they called on a Tuesday night. I had to go see my hair girl on Wednesday, and I was on set working on Thursday.
Wow. That's a fast turnaround.
My poor hair girl was like, I don't want to take you black, because they wanted that jet black, just flat, and I was like, let's just do it.
Wow.
Figuring out how to get it back to blonde. I was again working on another show where I had to be blonde, and I'm like, well, I've got time. I'm on hiatus, so I have some time.
Well, when's Jawbreaker 2 come out?
Yeah, what? I know.
They were shopping a musical around.
Yeah, I read something about that. Oh my God, that would be so awesome because now, they've done Mean Girls, the musical. Do they have a Heathers musical?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then Jawbreaker, the musical has to happen. I think. Yeah. Well, Julie, thank you so much for your time today. We have had such a blast, like revisiting your career. You've been in so many iconic things.
Oh my gosh, I love your career. I want it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had such a great time chatting with you. Thank you for taking the time. We wish you nothing but the best. We can't wait to see what you do next. Blonde, brunette, whatever.
Hopefully hopefully it'll be something like The Substance 2. That would be
Oh, yes. Oh,
I love it.
I mean, hey, there's got to be, and there will be more stuff like that because of how the recognition
I want The Substance 2 with Julie Benz and like 2 blondes.
2 blondes.
There's 3 people. It's like an extra weird Substance thing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We will definitely be in touch, and thank you for taking the time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.